Welcome, dear listeners, to History with Herodotus, where the past comes alive through the power of storytelling and the rigor of historical inquiry. Today, we embark on a fascinating journey through one of the most pivotal moments in modern history, the French Revolution. This epic tale of transformation, upheaval, and the quest for liberty, equality, and fraternity will transport us to the streets of 18th century Paris, where the whispers of discontent grew into a roar that would change the course of European history. In the mid-18th century, France was a nation beset on all sides by the contradictions of its own making. The absolute monarchy, with King Louis XV at its helm, ruled over a society divided into three estates: the clergy, the nobility, and the commoners. This ancient system, where privilege and power were concentrated in the hands of the few, stood in stark contrast to the Enlightenment ideals that were spreading like wildfire across Europe. Thinkers such as Rousseau, Voltaire, and Montesquieu were challenging traditional authority, advocating for reason, individual rights, and the social contract. In this ferment of ideas, France was also grappling with a crippling financial crisis. The burden of taxation fell heavily on the common people, while the nobility and clergy enjoyed exemptions that further exacerbated the economic disparities. The country's involvement in the 7 Years' War had drained its coffers, and the weight of debt hung over the nation like the sword of Damocles. As the people of France struggled under the yoke of poverty and injustice, their gaze turned increasingly towards the Palace of Versailles, where the opulent lifestyle of King Louis XVI and his queen, Marie Antoinette, seemed to embody the very essence of callous indifference. Against this backdrop of simmering discontent, a series of events began to unfold that would eventually push France to the brink of revolution. The death of King Louis XV in 1774 brought his grandson, Louis XVI, to the throne. Young and indecisive, Louis XVI faced the daunting task of reforming a system that was fundamentally flawed. His appointment of Anne Robert, Jacques Turgot as controller general of finances in 1774 marked an attempt to address the economic woes through liberal reforms. However, Turgot's efforts were short-lived, as he was dismissed in 1776 due to opposition from the nobility and clergy, who saw his policies as a threat to their privileges. The subsequent appointment of Jacques Necker, a Swiss banker, as Director General of Finances in 1777 brought temporary relief through his innovative approach to public finance. However, Necker's eventual dismissal in 1781, followed by his brief return and final departure in 1789, left France on the precipice of financial collapse. The calling of the Estates General in 1789, after a hiatus of over a century, was a last-ditch effort to address the crisis. This assembly, representing the three estates, was tasked with approving new taxes to alleviate the financial strain. Yet, it would soon become the catalyst for something far more profound. As the Estates General convened on May 5, 1789, the representatives of the three estates gathered at the Hôtel de Menus Plaisirs in Versailles, each with their own agenda and aspirations. The third estate, comprising commoners, soon found itself at odds with the nobility and clergy, who insisted on voting by estate rather than by head count. This deadlock led to a pivotal moment on June 17, 1789, when the third estate, now calling itself the National Assembly, took an oath in the tennis court of Versailles, vowing not to disband until a new constitution had been adopted. This bold move marked a significant shift in the balance of power, as the people's representatives asserted their authority against the traditional elite. The summer of 1789 was a season of escalating tensions and decisive actions. On July 11th, King Louis XVI dismissed Jacques Necker, the popular finance minister, sparking widespread outrage and protests in Paris. The National Assembly, now bolstered by the support of the people, continued to push for reform, adopting the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen on August 26, 1789. This foundational document enshrined the principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity, which would become the guiding ideals of the revolution. As the National Assembly worked to establish a new constitutional order, the people of Paris took matters into their own hands. On October 5, 1789, a crowd of women, driven by hunger and desperation, marched on Versailles, demanding bread and justice. The following day, a larger mob, including men and women, stormed the palace, forcing the royal family to return to Paris. This event marked a turning point in the revolution, as the people's power and influence became increasingly evident. The year 1790 saw significant developments, including the establishment of a new administrative system, with departments replacing the old provinces, and the adoption of the civil constitution of the clergy, which subordinated the Catholic Church to the state. The National Assembly also abolished feudalism and established the principle of equality before the law. However, these reforms did not quell the growing unrest, as radical factions, such as the Jacobins, began to exert their influence. As the revolution gained momentum, the monarchy's position became increasingly precarious. In June 1791, the royal family attempted to flee France in disguise, but they were recognized and arrested at Varennes. This incident further eroded the king's credibility and paved the way for the eventual abolition of the monarchy. The National Assembly, now dominated by the Legislative Assembly, continued to push for radical reforms, including the establishment of a new system of education and the reorganization of the military. The summer of 1792 was marked by rising tensions and violence, as the people's patience wore thin. On August 10, 1792, a mob attacked the Tuileries Palace, killing hundreds of royal guards and forcing the king to take refuge with the Legislative Assembly. This event marked the effective end of the monarchy, and on September 21, 1792, the National Convention, which had replaced the Legislative Assembly, formally abolished the monarchy, declaring France a republic. The Reign of Terror, which lasted from 1793 to 1794, was a period of extreme violence and repression, during which thousands of perceived enemies of the revolution were executed or arrested. The Committee of Public Safety, led by Maximilien Robespierre, dominated the National Convention, wielding executive power and imposing its radical ideology on the nation. As the terror reached its peak, even prominent revolutionaries, such as Georges Danton, fell victim to the guillotine. As the Reign of Terror subsided, the National Convention began to dismantle the Committee of Public Safety's radical apparatus, and Maximilien Robespierre, the mastermind behind the terror, was arrested and executed on July 28, 1794. This marked a significant shift in the revolution's trajectory, as the National Convention sought to establish a more moderate and stable government. The Directory, a 5-member executive council, took power in November 1795, but its ineffectiveness and corruption led to widespread discontent. In 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte, a brilliant military strategist, seized control of the government in a coup d'état, marking the end of the French Revolution and the beginning of the Napoleonic Empire. The revolution's legacy, however, continued to shape France and the world. As the great historian Albert Matthias once said, the French Revolution was not just a French event, but a European and even a world event. Its impact on modern politics, society, and culture is still felt today. The French Revolution's emphasis on liberty, equality, and fraternity inspired similar movements across Europe and beyond. The revolution's Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, adopted in 1789, has served as a model for human rights documents around the world. The revolution's influence can be seen in the Latin American Wars of Independence, the Greek War of Independence, and the revolutions of 1848, among others. Today, the French Revolution is remembered as a complex and multifaceted event that shaped the course of modern history. Its legacy is evident in France's modern institutions, such as the École Normale Supérieure, founded in 1794 to promote education and critical thinking. The revolution's symbols, like the tricolor flag and the Marseillaise anthem, continue to evoke a sense of national pride and identity. The revolution's ideas about democracy, human rights, and social justice have become fundamental principles of modern society. As the great historian Eric Hobsbawm once noted, the French Revolution was the first and most influential of all modern revolutions, and its legacy continues to shape our world today. In conclusion, the French Revolution was a pivotal event in modern history that has left an indelible mark on politics, society, and culture. Its legacy can be seen in the modern nation-state, the concept of human rights, and the ongoing struggle for social justice and democracy. The revolution's complexities and contradictions continue to fascinate historians and scholars, offering a rich and nuanced understanding of this transformative period. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, remember that, to understand the present, we must first understand the past.